I mean, this here, right? Uber and Lyft shifting the blame, saying, oh, you know what? Lyft and Uber say they train their drivers. They train us drivers, right, to spot human trafficking. As if this title, oh, we train them to spot human traffickers, right? So it more or less shifts the blame. You know, they're good. They train, they know how to handle that. Abusers sometimes bypass the system. Lawsuits and prosecutors reviewed by NBC say sexual abusers were able to bypass Uber's and Lyft's terms of service to transport unaccompanied children, teenagers. When they launched Uber Teen, we knew, ladies and gentlemen, we said it, all the channels, all the YouTubers said it, nightmare waiting to happen. Many videos made by myself, right? Nightmare, this Uber Teen. But I love how it's comical. I love how they try to shift the blame and say, you know what, our drivers are trained. You know, our drivers are trained to spot human traffickers. We follow our gut. They're not training us. If we spot something out of the ordinary, we report it, and we do our job, and we probably have saved many lives just by following our instincts, right? But it's a joke that they say, oh, you know what, they trained to spot human traffickers. Some people accused of being sexual abusers have used Lyft or Uber to transport unaccompanied teenagers, right? Uber Teen, or children to their doorsteps, according to criminal court records and lawsuits filed by the families of accusers. NBC identified 10 instances since 2017 in which adults who were alleged to have planned sexual abuse hired Uber or Lyft drivers for the purpose of taking teens or children to homes or hotel rooms, according to court records. That's just 10 instances. Ladies and gentlemen, there are hundreds of instances, but it's not our job, nor are we actually trained by them to spot human trafficking. So a lot of these incidences are not reported. They just happen to, intercept 10 here, and they're going by these 10. There are hundreds and hundreds of other stories since 2017, guaranteed. The findings comes after the FBI issued an alert in 2022 warning of reports of rideshare services being used to facilitate child abduction. Here it says, our cars were used to take teens or children to homes or hotel rooms, according to court records. The FBI said it appeared potential abusers believed rideshare services afforded more privacy from potential witnesses than traditional modes of transportation. And while the incidents are rare, the FBI said they also have a high impact on victims. Uber and Lyft have made some changes in recent years. No changes really at all, right? In-app 911, what does that bullshit do? Nothing. To try to reduce the potential for abuse and increase safety for minors, including new training materials for drivers. That's a joke, right? Oh, here's some training materials. Go and spot the human traffickers. On how to spot abusive situations, and a new Uber program aimed at allowing teens to take rides if approved ahead of time by a guardian. Nightmare, absolute nightmare. See, when we get a teen in our car, do we know it's a legitimate Uber Teen trip? Or did somebody else set up an Uber Teen account, a bad person, and is funneling teens to hotel rooms? We don't know that. We can't look behind the scenes. However, Uber and Lyft could do something big here, right? They could screen every single booking made against a database. Is this a legitimate parent transporting their teens? Is this a bad element transporting teens? They could do that, but they don't want to spend any money on that, ladies and gentlemen. Lyft and Uber said separate statements that they were committed to making their platform safe. They've been saying that forever. David Risher, you're a joke. Daryl Koshashawa, you're a joke. You've been saying this forever. You've done nothing. And here, next story. I'll be reporting on the next story next week, or multiple stories next week. In 6 of the 10 instances, court records say a teen or a child took the ride unaccompanied, which would be a violation of the app's terms of service. In a 7th case, an abuser found a driver on the Uber app, but then arranged the ride off the app, according to allegations in court records. In 3 other cases, adults ordered Lyfts or Ubers thinking they were transporting teens or children, which would violate the terms of service, but they were instead communicating with undercover agents. While the incidents represent a small fraction of Lyft and Uber rides, they are another example of the dangers teens and children face as the internet has created new ways for sexual abusers to find and lure vulnerable targets. This is a gift to those criminals. Uber Teens is a gift to these criminals, right? The problem appears to have persisted for years, according to an NBC News review of cases. So they knew this for years. Why didn't they act years and years ago? Why are they bringing out a watered down version of this verification process, which is nonsense? You don't have to upload your passport. You don't have to agree. You automatically can take the ride. You just don't get that tiny, tiny little blue asterisk. It's a joke, ladies and gentlemen. Daryl Koshashawa, you're a joke. David Risher, you're a joke. You could have acted on this years ago. You could have saved so much pain and suffering of children and teenagers that went through this. But no, ladies and gentlemen, they looked the other way, other way. And I want to say to those wives of David Risher and Daryl Koshashawi, your husbands knew about this ages ago. They let it slide. Just goes to show how much they care about children. Think about that. These wives of these individual CEOs should think about that for a second, right? They knew all about this. However, it's okay. Uber Teen makes money. How to stop human trafficking has been a subject of discussion and advocacy throughout the travel and tourism industries, from airlines and train operators to hotels and casinos worldwide. 320 companies and organizations, including Uber, have signed on to an industry code of conduct to end child exploitation, including through employee training. While Lyft and others have partnered with the Department of Homeland Security on anti-trafficking effort called Blue Campaign. The 10 instances are distinct from related issues facing Lyft and Uber, including hundreds of reports of sexual assaults against passengers and against drivers, as well as the fatal shooting of an Uber driver in March by an investigator said, an Ohio man who told them he thought she was scamming him. 4 of the 10 instances involved Lyft drivers and 6 involved Uber drivers. In 3 of the 10 instances, the families of the accusers sued Lyft, claiming the company and its drivers were negligent. The company settled. You see, they sued the company and its drivers, and they say, we were negligent. I want to remind those passengers, we get put into those situations. Now, when it comes to sexual abuse or sexual assault from a driver on a passenger, free game. You could sue the rider, you can sue the driver if they're engaging in sexual assault. Michael DePascal, a lawyer for a Kansas teenager who said she was transported via Lyft when she was 13 years old, said Lyft and its driver should have picked up on numerous flags in her case to stop potential abuse. He also said Lyft had failed for years to put in place measures that might deter child sex exploitation, such as verifying riders' ages. The more safeguards they put in place, the harder it is for them to gain users, said DePascal, an attorney at the firm DePascal Moore. The status quo, he added, is good for their bottom line, but it's not good for users, 100%. In their written policies, both companies stop short of requiring drivers to act. Lyft's policy says that a driver may ask to confirm a passenger's age and that a driver may Also let a passenger know that the driver will have to cancel the trip if the passenger is indeed under 18. Uber policy says that drivers should decline if they believe a passenger is a minor and that they may request verification. But drivers have complained for years. This is true. We have complained for years that they are in a challenging situation. We are being put in that situation, ladies and gentlemen. Dara Khosrowshahi and David Risher are putting us in that situation. The Lyft and Uber apps don't require passengers to verify their ages in most cases, so in practice, drivers end up as the frontline enforcers of corporate policies. We should not be the enforcers. We do not get paid to be enforcers, David Risher and Dara Khosrowshahi. So in practice, drivers end up as the frontline enforcers of corporate policies. Drivers are expected to be trained professionals who can spot a variety of suspected criminal behavior, but they are generally low-paid contractors, not employees. And there is a pervasive perception in the driver community that enforcing certain rules, such as those about unaccompanied minors, could result in negative consequences for drivers. Wrongful deactivation. Several people on driver message boards have written that they've been penalized or have faced negative consequences after they've turned down ride requests for unaccompanied minors. Through lost time, retaliatory customer reviews, or failure to receive cancellation fees, NBC News reached out to 16 of the people posting. None agreed to an interview. Lyft and Uber declined to make any executives or employees available for interviews. Listen to that. Lyft and Uber. Let me read this again. Lyft and Uber declined to make any executives or employees available for interviews because it's too damn embarrassing, right? They're caught with their pants down. And the wives of these CEOs should know that. You're dealing with weak men who are whores to pennies, right? They will sleep with anyone that has syphilis, AIDS, gonorrhea, crabs to get an extra buck. Think about that. Think about that for a second, dear wife of CEO. Uber said in a statement that it has worked to stop human trafficking in multiple ways. It launched an education program for its drivers in 2018, and its training materials include a 19-minute video with tips for how to identify victims. It gets advice on its training from multiple non-governmental organizations, including the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. In 2016, it signed on to Travel Industry Code of Conduct to end child exploitation. Companies are required to report annually on 6 criteria, including efforts to train employees. While we are not experts in this space, Uber is committed to doing what it can to combat the societal problem of human trafficking, as we recognize that it can present itself on our platform. And we partner with organizations who are experts in this space to help accomplish this goal. We do recognize that at any given time, there are thousands of eyes on the road and want to do as much as we can to arm drivers with information and resources. Look how they are conveniently dumping this on drivers. We give them videos. We give them advice, right? We give them information. We give them resources. And we encourage them to be vigilant while driving. We are not your policemen, David Risher and Dara Khosrowshahi. We are not your enforcers. You guys are too cheap. You don't hire specialists in this area. You don't program your apps and check against criminal databases or human trafficking databases that are out there to stop this madness. No, again, I'll tell you, you accept dollars and pennies from any hoe, from any prostitute, from anyone you'll sleep with that has gonorrhea, syphilis, AIDS, crabs, herpes. They will get into bed with anyone, ladies and gentlemen. NBC News sent the court cases to the companies for comment. A representative for Uber said 2 of the incidents were stings in which no minors were involved. In a third, the driver called law enforcement after having dropped off an unaccompanied minor, leading to an arrest, though not in time to stop an assault, prosecutors say. In a fourth, the abuser, who has since been convicted, used Uber to find a driver willing to travel 700 miles to pick up a victim, but then paid in cash and with a money transfer app, not through the Uber app. A representative for Lyft didn't answer written questions about specific incidences or about the lawsuits against the company. Ladies and gentlemen, I am working with law firms right now. I have made referrals of drivers, female drivers that have been sexually assaulted or sexually abused by passengers. It's real. And don't tell me it's not real when the wrong people are funneling teenagers, maybe under Uber Teen, or maybe just getting them into a car. This guy is so desperate, he's sending them 700 miles to his abuser. It's sickening. It's sickening, and it's happening on Dara Khosrowshahi's watch. I want his wife Sydney to know this, right? And let's look up David Risher's wife, David Risher's wife's name. Let's call her out, because your husbands are guilty here. Not only do they have blood on their hands for all the stabbings and murders that are taking place in cars with no check against criminal databases. No, but they are allowing this to happen, right? I want to actually, when you put the name into the universe, it travels quickly, right? News, oh, he called you out by name. That's what I'm going to do right now. David Risher's wife. Name. Jennifer Risher. Let's look at what she looks like. Jennifer Risher. You may want to have a chat with your husband, David Risher, right? Jennifer Risher. Let's look her up. I like calling these people out, right? Because sometimes it takes a strong woman to actually slap some fucking sense into, an abusive executive or CEO. So maybe she's willing to do that, right, Jennifer? Listen up. Jennifer Risher, David Risher. I want to see what this woman looks like. I know what Dara Khosrowshahi's wife looks like. Oh, there she is. There she is. There she is. Right, Jennifer? You're okay. You're okay with this. You know about this. This gets discussed around the dinner table. Don't tell me your husband doesn't bring up press releases or articles. Oh my God, this was in the news today. This was in the news today, right? Usually they share everything with their wives and vice versa. You don't think this chick is not dialed in and knows of all the bullshit, really? And I'm sure, I'm not going to show your children, but your children are not subjected to this because you have private drivers, right? You have private security. Dara Khosrowshahi spends close to $2 million on security. You think his kids or David Risher's or Jennifer Risher's kids get into cars? No, they don't. But they're okay with this. They are okay with teenagers being funneled through the rideshare companies, and they know of these instances since 2017. Yet they turn a blind eye and pretend, now you know what? This doesn't exist. No, this is real. This is real, and you can actually do something about it. Jennifer, slap your husband awake and have a chat with him tonight in bed about this topic. Honey, you need to stop this. Dara Khosrowshahi, same thing. Sydney, slap your husband awake and have a conversation about this. This is BS that this is still happening on your clock 5 or 6 years after all the investigations. Still happening. Yet they're perfectly fine with rolling out Uber Teen. They're perfectly fine with it. And God forbid we mistakenly take someone underage and it comes out, we get penalized. We get wrongfully deactivated for the nonsense that they created, ladies and gentlemen. There's no checks and balances. There's no cross-referencing against criminal databases. Oh no, they conveniently have their own little third-party database. And verification process means absolutely nothing. You get a tiny little asterisk or you don't get one, but you don't have to upload your picture, your passport, or your ID. No, you are giving these criminals a green light. You are facilitating this type of nonsense. You two need to have a serious conversation about this tonight. It's wrong, and you know it, and you own it. Lyft said in a statement that safety is fundamental and that it constantly works to make Lyft an even safer platform. It continued, we don't allow passengers under the age of 18 to take Lyft rides with an adult. Drivers should report requests to transport unaccompanied minors to our support team so we can take appropriate action. Neither Uber nor Lyft responded to written questions about why their corporate policies. I mean, his wife, your executive, your husbands don't even respond to this. Doesn't it show you how weak they are? They can't take any responsibility. They can't answer this. They're okay with this, but they won't talk about it. They won't answer any questions. You're married to weak men, abusive men that are taking advantage of humans and families and kids for the investors' sakes, right? For Vanguard, for BlackRock, and it's shameful. It is absolutely shameful. I have teenagers. A lot of people in this channel have teenagers and kids. They don't mind. They're okay with it. They facilitate it. Neither Uber nor Lyft responded to written questions about why their corporate policies use the word may. Oh, may! What a strong word, may. Could be, may. In describing a driver's responsibility not to transport a suspected minor. Again, I want to remind these CEOs, we are not the police. We are not the enforcers of your failed platform, right? Do not use us. Do not shift the blame on us. Do not think that you can send a 19-minute video, oh, and we are your registered policeman enforcer of note in the car and should be taking care of this. It is not our job. If I had access to a database and I had unknown person A, unknown person B, and unknown person C, and I could actually cross-reference as a driver against a database, I'd say, oh, number one is legit, number two is legit, but number three, oh my God, there's several records. It's been busted for this in the past. Nobody at these companies checks against criminal databases. However, right, I want to remind these wives of these CEOs. Jennifer, we the drivers get checked, but your husband doesn't check the passenger. Sydney, wife of Darakosha Shawi, we get checked, the driver, against criminal databases, not the passengers. Oh, they pay. We'll take their money. We'll sleep with anyone. Your husbands will screw anyone for $1. Let me repeat that. Your husbands will screw anyone for $1. Whether they have herpes, syphilis, gonorrhea, AIDS, or crabs. Show me the money. Show me the money. Right? Show me the money. We'll drive you. Like Uber, Lyft offers videos about human trafficking awareness to drivers. And in February, it said it was partnering with the Homeland Security Department to supplement its existing tutorials. Neither Lyft nor Uber responded to written questions about how often drivers watch their training videos or for how long. If teenagers and children are taking rides unaccompanied, that might be a sign that drivers aren't getting enough training, said Yvonne Chen. Oh, we're not getting enough training. Do me a fucking favor, Yvonne Chen. This is not our job. It's the company's job to make sure we don't have felons and pedophiles in our cars. It's not our job to play the cop. We don't get paid anything either. Director of Private Sector Engagement at PACT, a non-profit organization dedicated to fighting child trafficking. You're a joke, Yvonne Chen, if you think, oh, you know what, your drivers need to get more training. It's not our job. We don't get paid. We get paid very, very little in many states, under the minimum wage. And then we should still be the enforcer? Pull your head out of your ass, girl, Yvonne. Many of the trafficking instances started the same way, with potential abusers meeting teenagers or children online through social media, then persuading them to meet in person. The youngest reported victim was an 11-year-old girl. The man accused of abusing her called her a Lyft late on a Sunday night in 2018, and she got into the vehicle unaccompanied, wearing pajamas and a child's backpack. God, what do humans do, man? They're animals. They're savage. Cluck, cluck. Good night. Sleep tight. The alleged abuser had entered. The second driver also didn't ask, according to the lawsuit. The suit says that the assault happened after the second ride, and that during a third Lyft ride the next morning, a third driver also didn't intervene. All three drivers later said in depositions that they were unaware of Lyft's ban on accompanied minors. On 3 occasions, the perpetrator of the sexual assault contacted a Lyft for her to be transported. So she was transported on another person's account, without an adult in the car. That's on Lyft. Right, Jennifer? They were transported on another person's account, that teenager. But your husband's okay with it. Lyft and co-defendant, the Days Inn motel chain, agreed last year to pay $9 million collectively to settle the lawsuit. Days Inn didn't respond to a request for comment. The man accused in that case, Bernard Rogers, was 23 years old at the time. He was charged with rape and other crimes. Court records don't say whether he has entered a plea or whether he is still in custody. Put him out of his misery, man. Pop him. Lyft's terms of service prohibit people under age 18 from using the service unless adults are with them. Uber's terms of service also prohibit unaccompanied rides by minors unless they are 13 or older and have signed up ahead of time for teen accounts, which need a guardian's permission and are available only in some cities. Despite those restrictions, many teens have routinely used Uber and Lyft, including to go to school. When an NBC News reporter recently signed up for accounts with both services, neither asked for a date of birth, neither asked for a date of birth or proof of age or identity. The apps require agreeing to the terms of service, which include the 18 and over requirement. In at least one document case of an unaccompanied minor, a ride-hailing driver intervened, leading to an arrest. In 2019, an Uber driver in Alabama became concerned about a passenger after having dropped her off and called police. According to state and federal authorities, the passenger had said she was 18, but turned out to be a 15-year-old girl. The man who arranged for the Uber pleaded guilty to interstate travel for sexual contact with a minor. Scrutiny has been increasing last year. A bipartisan group of U.S. senators said they were investigating how Lyft and Uber ensure their apps aren't used for human trafficking. The senators cited a 2018 survey by Polaris, which runs the National Human Trafficking Hotline, that found that 9% of victims of traffickers used ride-hailing services such as Uber or Lyft during their exploitation, that traffickers used their own vehicles in 81% of the cases, and that taxis were used at some point in 47% of the cases. In September, a Texas law took effect that requires ride-hailing companies to provide drivers with annual training in how to spot human trafficking. The training must include a video that's at least 15 minutes long. Again, we are not the enforcers, right? Some people accused of being sex offenders are alleged to have hired ride-hailing drivers to transport teenagers long distances. Federal prosecutors said a New Jersey man used the Uber app in 2022 to find a driver willing to pick up a 15-year-old girl from Indiana and take her 700 miles to New Jersey. A man, Arnold Castillo, then paid the driver $1,000 in cash. Last year, Castillo pleaded guilty to transporting a minor for criminal sexual activity and coercion of a minor, and a judge sentenced him to 15 years in prison. In 2019, a Lyft driver picked up a 13-year-old girl from Kansas near midnight and drove her alone more than 150 miles to Nebraska, home of a man she had met online, according to state prosecutors in a lawsuit filed by the girl's family. Drivers, do not drive teenagers. Do not accept Uber Teen, period. Ask the kid. If they don't look 18, don't do it. Right? You could be facilitating something. And again, it is not your job to enforce. Chad Lucas, who represents the girl's family along with De Pascal, said the company should adequately train drivers to verify the ages of riders at pickup. So now it's our job to verify. Look, we will do it if it's written in the books. If it is a requirement that a child shows an ID that they're 18, if they're 17, they don't go, period. Right? Why don't they have some, they have photo recognition, photo verification. Why are they not doing that with teenagers, right? Lyft is putting the drivers in a bad position, in a no-win position. And then when something bad like this happens, they say it's all the driver's fault. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Here we go, right? Lyft is putting the drivers in a bad position, in a no-win position. And when something bad like this happens, they say it's all the driver's fault. Sorry. It's all the driver's fault. That's what they're doing to us. She's a kid when this happened. She's 13 years old, and going through that sort of trauma at that age is something that you hope your kid never has to deal with. The Nebraska man, Nicholas Avery, pleaded no contest in 2020 and was sentenced to 60 years in prison. The family's lawsuit against Lyft is pending. Lyft and Uber have faced questions since their early days about how they enforce their restrictions on unaccompanied minors. In 2016, they sent written plans to California regulators saying their enforcement largely consisted of disclosing their terms of service and publishing information on websites. Uber used to ban unaccompanied minors as Lyft does, but last year it began offering a ride service aimed at teenagers called Uber for Teens. Uber for Teens, right? Shocking. And I gotta call out this woman here. Have a conversation with your husband about this. This is unacceptable. Bringing out Uber Teens. They know this is happening. Let's pretend it doesn't happen, Mr. CEO. The Uber representative said the company had no information to share about how many people have signed up for Uber Teen accounts. Can you believe that? We're not going to share any information how many people actually signed up for Uber Teen, right? Uber Teen, he signed off on it, and people are abusing it. We said it in this channel. I said it. It's a disaster waiting to happen. I spoke to podcaster Steve from Rideshare Rodeo. We spoke about this. Disaster waiting to happen. But they're okay with it, right? I just want to remind these wives of these husbands, your husbands will sleep with any hoe, with any prostitute that'll pay a penny or a dollar, whether they have gonorrhea, syphilis, crabs, AIDS, herpes. Uber Teen is okay for them. The service isn't available to Uber's UK customers. Thank God. They have some sense over there. Who must be at least 18 old to ride unaccompanied. Robotaxis, autonomous vehicles that don't have human drivers present could complicate the situation further, right? Waymo could be facilitating this. Cruise could be facilitating this. We respect and protect the privacy of our riders, but we do have safeguards, including interior cameras that allow us to identify violations, right? But you're not going to know what's going on in that hotel room once that kid is dropped off. Don't act like you are all involved, Waymo or Cruise. You have no idea who you are facilitating a trip for, taking that teen on Waymo or Cruise to some dodgy hotel. So they're also guilty. At least one case, Lyft has pushed back against the suggestion that its driver could have identified a 14-year-old girl as a minor. In 2022, a man used Lyft to call a ride for the girl from a street corner in Connecticut to his home 150 miles away. He sexually assaulted her. At the pickup, the girl wore pajama pants and a hoodie and carried a book bag, it says. Lyft lawyers argued that the suit should be dismissed in part because it included no facts demonstrating that the driver knew or should have known that Jane Doe was a minor, the lawyers added. As both minors and adults can wear pajama pants, hoodies, and book bags, this allegation is hardly sufficient to establish that the driver knew or should have known that Jane was a minor. In February, a judge denied Lyft's motion to dismiss. Good. Sue them silly. Right? And I'm going to, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be all fair game. I'm going to be bringing these wives into the conversation. I really will, because, you know, their husbands could make big decisions. And, you know, and again, I'll say this. A powerful wife, a powerful woman. They say behind every powerful man is a powerful woman. I mean, right now, the way I see it, you have two very weak men making abusive decisions, money decisions for their investors, and their wife are complicit. Their wives are complicit. They know about this, but they don't speak up. Tomorrow we're going to address a long interview of David Risher. I'm going to poke holes in that interview. The guy thinks he's glorious. The guy thinks he's God-given. He's a joke, ladies and gentlemen. And I'll say to Jennifer Risher, your husband's a joke. Your comments, please.